Yo, what's going on, Dragon Ballers? Welcome back to another video. Today, when you're watching this, is the PPG Miami Invitational Tournament. I am currently in Miami. I'm actually pre-recording this for your guys' viewing pleasure. Today, I want to do a little bit of a meta prediction snapshot of what I think the PPG Miami Invitational is going to look like. We're going to talk about the top 5 decks I expect to see performing highly in Miami. Now, that's not to say I don't think Rogue is going to do too well. I think we're actually in a very, very open format. I've said many times, I think Dark Broly is the best deck in the format, but it's not too much of a power gap between Dark Broly, the decks below Dark Broly, and then even the Rogue decks below that. I think it's all relatively close in power, but these are just the top 5 decks that I think are going to be the best picks going into this tournament. So if you guys are new here, definitely subscribe, hit that bell to this video. If you guys want to help support the channel, make sure to go down to the description below. If you guys want to compete in events just like the PPG Miami Invitational, check out the Patreon there. You can see where my head's at competitively, and it'll help you get your game up. That being said, let's get started. So minor spoilers in the beginning. Of course, I think Dark Broly is the best deck in the format. I've said that in many videos. I think it's just a results-oriented way of looking at things. It's got the most tops of any deck ever since pretty much Draft Box 6 format, and this deck has more wins than any other deck in set 12 format. So just a numbers results way of looking at things. Now, that's not to say that this deck is anywhere near as oppressive as Vegex was. Vegex ran the game for several sets, and Vegex just won tournament after tournament after tournament. If you guys pay attention to my thumbnails, I actually use the winning leader in most of the thumbnails when I do a meta breakdown, and I just remember back then it was just Vegex week 1, Vegex week 2, week 3, week 4, week 5, repeat. Dark Broly hasn't quite been that way. Yes, it does have more wins than any other leader currently in the format, but it's still not like Dark Broly back to back, right? It's just Dark Broly a majority of the time. So definitely in a healthier spot than Vegex was, but I still think Dark Broly is just the deck to beat right now. The deck just does so much for free. Spamming 30k battle cards, has free removal, has free hand rip, free drop area interruption, especially the drop area interruption. That's a really big thing in the current format between decks like Sin Shenron and other decks that just require cards in their drop area to do things to gain advantages. On top of that, ever since set 12, we got Dark Broly Unbridled Destruction, basically a 7-drop Trishula. If you guys are from Yu-Gi-Oh, you basically have to either warp a battle card from your hand, field, and drop area. If you can't or choose not to meet those requirements, you have to crit 1 life. That card added a crazy power boost to the deck, especially because it's a red battle card. You can now awaken and resolve your heartfelt plea, get that onto the field for another opportunity to crit another one of your opponent's lives, or you get a draw 2. So on your awaken, you can either draw 4 or crit your opponent 2 life. Like, that is just an insane play. And even though that's not free, that costs 2 energy. For 2 energy, that's an insane effect. And that's really what we got to think about when we're looking at competitive Dragon Ball Super decks right now. What is the most outlandish, ridiculously powerful thing you can do for the least amount of energy? First of all, again, playing 30k battle cards for 0 is up there, and then critting 2 life or drawing 4 cards for 2 energy is definitely going to be up there. Dark Broly is easily the deck to beat. It does the most powerful stuff in the format, at least from where I'm positioned, from my opinion. And don't get me wrong, there are a lot of cards in the format that are able to interact with Dark Broly and kind of put some pressure on them. So, for instance, you got Violent Rays for red, you got Bigamore for green, you've got Nimbus to a degree in yellow, but honestly it's not really the best. And then you've got SS2 Heroic Prospect in blue, which those cards do put a hamper on Dark Broly. But think about it this way: when Dark Broly is so strong and these cards need to be played at 3 to 4 of in main decks, especially Bigamore, right? Like SS2 Heroic Prospect, Violent Rays, not too much to ask to main deck and red decks. Although think about when Violent Rays wasn't as good back in the beginning of set 11, people really just weren't playing it. They were maybe playing 2 copies, if that, in a red deck. Now it's like a mandatory 3 to 4 of. So yes, Dark Broly is a format warping deck. Yes, Dark Broly I think is the best deck in the format. Expect to see it do incredibly well at PPG Miami. Next up, we've got Launch. I think Launch is one of the top decks right now, both in terms of popularity and raw power. The red-green variant of Launch has potential to attack with Piccolo, Junior Eradicator, or Peace, burn the opponent for 2 life if they have Acrobatic Warrior in play, and then you're able to just go for the rest of the double strike with a huge Piccolo, because you've probably tapped, at that point, at least a 15k battle card, maybe a 20k battle card on top of that, maybe another 5k battle card on top of that. Just adding power with Alliance is so crazy strong. And yes, there are some battle tricks coming back to the format because we know Arrival is becoming more popular. We've got red-blue, we've got red-green, we've got blue-yellow. But it really does take a very specific situation in order for your opponent to be able to interrupt Piccolo mid-battle. Like, for instance, you got to be in the mirror match where they're playing red-green, or if you're in red-blue, it's actually going to be pretty tough to damage the Piccolo or to remove Piccolo from the field because the alliance adds to the base power. So let's say you're in red-blue, right, playing Cooler or maybe red-blue Beerus like Brian Samuel's list. If you're playing that and you rival Cooler, well, let's just say Piccolo's at, 31k because you added 15 to it. You're going to need 4 ways to minus it, essentially. That's like 2 Coolers, maybe a Hercule Boo, and maybe you had to like Yamcha counterplay it on play. Like, that just takes so much to do. So it is really tough to, kill the Piccolo mid-battle. You do have green decks that have the advantage of playing Dormant Potential and Leech. That's not bad, but green, much like blue, not really being seen too much in the meta. We've already covered a black deck. We've got a red deck here. I think red, black, and yellow are the top 3 colors in the meta right now. Red probably has the most decks that reach a top placing strategy level. We'll talk more about that as we get to the next deck. But yes, launch, incredibly powerful red-green. I do think tricolor launch is picking up a bit of steam as well, but for whatever reason, I don't think it's quite as popular as the red-green variant. Basically, when you're playing tricolor launch, you're giving up the, burn cheese ability of doing the Gogeta acrobatic warrior stuff, and you're adding red-blue to the deck, so your deck is a little bit more sturdy, a little bit tankier, a little bit better defensively. But again, you are losing that burn cheese combo, so while your win con's not as strong, your opener's not as strong, you can play a little bit more of like an elongated mid-range game. But maybe these launch players really do just favor that full-on burn damage combo, right? So while I do think tricolor is very, very good, I don't think it'll be more popular than just the pure red-green. But even to say that, I mean, launch last week topped a red-yellow variant of launch top, so I think there's a lot of innovation for launch. I think tricolor can definitely be a good thing. I think red-green can also, win a lot of games really early, and who knows, maybe pure red-blue will be seen. If red-yellow topped last week, I could definitely see a universe where that happens for sure. Then we've got King Piccolo. Yes, another red deck that I think is in the top 5 decks of the PPG Miami Invitational meta. This deck was looked at as a joke when set 12 was revealed. And, I like the deck a lot when it was revealed. I didn't look at it that way, but I really couldn't blame any people who did look at it that way. The leader starts 6 life. The leader has no inherent draw power, but after some weeks of testing set 12, many players started to discover that King Piccolo actually can draw an insane amount of cards. It just takes some setup, albeit that setup's not very hard to achieve. You just need your 1-drop Piano and or your 2-drop Piccolo Unison, neither of which are too hard to get. It's just that sometimes if you don't get there, you can lag behind a little bit. Now, again, if it wasn't for a card like Violent Rays, I personally think this deck would just get eaten up by Dark Broly, but Violent Rays is a card. And it is really good in the meta at the moment because you have decks like Dark Broly, you have decks like Red Broly where this card is incredibly relevant, and then you have your random road decks as well. There are many random road decks, just like Blue Yellow Kid Gohan. We swing with a lot of 20k battle cards that Violent Rays can interact with, and then occasionally you'll find the matchup, again, like Kid Gohan or any other, unison-based strategy, where the Violent Rays can actually be relevant for interacting with your opponent's unison, right? So Violent Rays definitely gives red decks the ability to do very, very well right now, but it's just the fact that the red defensive cards are so good. Yamcha Counterplay being a really strong card right now. Whenever there's a format where you can use Yamcha Counterplay in window 2, the majority of the time, Yamcha is going to be incredible. If you were just using Yamcha to your opponent hard playing a battle card, it's only 1 counter window. Yamcha is activated before that other battle card's technically in play on the hard cast, so you'd have to hit 2 things that are already in play with Yamcha. But in a format like this, where there's so many skills that are playing battle cards, Yamcha can effectively be used in window 2 to hit the battle card being played as well as another battle card your opponent has in play. So that's incredibly relevant against decks like Red Broly, even Dark Broly playing battle cards by skills constantly, Launch arriving battle cards, the Mirror Match playing battle cards constantly by skills. That just makes Yamcha so much better than it has been in previous formats. Keep in mind that card's been out since set 10. Didn't really see much play in set 10 or 11, so that's a really good thing the deck has going for it. Topo, you guys already know, Topo is an amazing card. It's been amazing ever since it came out. And then Piccolo just spamming battle cards for free is honestly insane, a little bit obnoxious. It defends any 15k attack for free. You get a free 5k combo every turn that plays a body. It's honestly nuts. Then we've got Mecha Frieza. Yes, I think Mecha Frieza will be one of the most highly represented decks down there in Miami. I think the Florida area is really well known for control. Those players really like their mid-range control decks. Mecha Frieza's got to be the top yellow deck of the format. But what's so cool about Mecha, and it really just speaks to this whole format in general, is that there's been so much innovation since week 1. You know, the Lord Slug engine, will they play it, will they not play it? I honestly can't tell you. I know some of the players down there were main decking it the last time around in Miami, back in I think January. This time around, maybe some adaptations have been made, maybe it's not in the main deck anymore. Violent Rush Bojack's also a card that's seen some experimentation in Mecha. That card can be okay. I personally don't think that the Mecha plays enough blue yellow to make it super consistent, but if you want to hedge your bets, you know, that Mecha is going to draw a crazy hand, which in reality it does draw a crazy hand. You're going to see your 8 to 10 blue yellows make Aegis more reliable, and then you're going to be able to play defense and control unlike any other deck in the format, most likely. So I think playing Bojack's a little bit of high risk, high reward, but if you want to go first place in a tournament like this, maybe you got to play that high risk, high reward, and if you get paid out, you're going to go really, really far in the tournament. But again, Mecha, lots of innovation. I would not be surprised if we saw some things that, you know, we never thought of before in terms of main deck text for Mecha or even sideboard text. And finally, guys, we're talking about Blue Baby. I slotted Blue Baby in as a rogue deck for this format just a few weeks ago, but just from putting my feelers out there, I'm seeing this deck picking up a lot more hype. I think a lot of players are going to be on this deck. I think it is one of the most effective control decks of the format because, yes, you have Sin Shenron, and personally, I think Sin has moved more towards mid-range than pure control. And you've also got Mecha, but again, slightly mid-range. If you want to play pure control, I think you're playing this or Invoker. Invoker has some really tough times against like the hyper aggro decks, particularly like Red Broly. But Blue Baby, in blue, you just have answers to everything. For your tall threats, you've got SS2 Heroic Prospect. For your low to the ground threats, you've got Gohan Baby's Minion. For counterplay, you have one of the best counterplays in the game, God Stealing Technique Trunks. You've got some good top end if you play like Android 17 Turning the Tide. You just have a lot of good things going for you if you want to play blue control. And again, this is really the redemption pick for blue. Other blue decks aren't as good right now, but I think in Baby, where you can reduce the cost of counters by 1, you get a lot more value out of what blue wants to do in this current format. It also helps that, you know, in blue, it's actually one of the very few colors you got to actually pay the total energy cost of battle cards. Like in blue, you play 4 drops for 4. You don't really do that in a lot of other decks. So being able to do that, but cheating costs in another avenue via your counters, that can mean a lot throughout the course of a tournament. So I do think Blue Baby will be a good pick for the weekend. But anyways, guys, that's my top 5 meta picks going into PPG Miami. I do want to know in the comments below what you think. Do you have any different picks for me? Do you agree with what I said? Thank you for watching, and I will see you next time.